Boom bam! I am President Chad, and you are inside the Fantasy Blitz. That's right, where we're going to be discussing everything fantasy and sharing our fantasy team. We're going to be sharing tips, we're going to be sharing tricks, we're going to be giving you good advice, and you're going to be going through the whole season of fantasy with us. There are a lot of different people going to be passing throughout this season. Today, I am inside with my brethren Raul. So let's get it started. I'm on the inside with the man Raul. Raul, boy, how you feeling? Boy, you excited? The thing starting tomorrow, you know.
Right, tomorrow already? Yeah, well, it's about time. It's about time. All the Commonwealth games and the cricket and the little women's thing. Nothing could compare to the EPL, boy. Nothing, nothing,
For
nothing.
sure, for sure, for sure. So we wanna just get people, this season in fantasy is going to be a little different. And it's going to be a little different because of the World Cup. So what is going to happen is that when they go on break for the World Cup, you're gonna have not a wild card necessarily, but what you're gonna have is a period of time during the World Cup where you could make unlimited transfers. So it's not that we actually have three wild cards because you normally will have your wild card to start the season and you're going to get another wild card in January, but you're going to have, between November to the 18th of December, during that period when the World Cup is going on, you could make unlimited transfers. So it almost comes, there are some people that like to keep the wild card until Christmas, till the busy season. You don't need to do that. So for this season in fantasy, you could actually be more aggressive. You could use your wild card earlier, knowing fully well that when the World Cup starts, you have unlimited transfers, which comes like a wild card. So that is something different that you could do this season that is normally not the case. That's pretty much it in terms of the overall rules, right? We still have the same regular chips. You have your triple captain, your free hit, and what's the third chip, Raul? Boost and bench
Boost,
boost.
bench boost.
Right,
Correct.
correct. Your bench boost. So yeah, everything else is pretty much standard. So that Raul, before we jump into our teams and talk about it a little bit, like give the people a little advice. I mean, every show we're gonna be giving you some little tips, little bits of advice to help you with your fantasy team. So, the game is starting tomorrow. So let's see what we can help you with. Raul, any advice for the people?
Well, being that the last thing that you mentioned was the chips, and we talked about the chips. Use your chips wisely. Understand what I'm telling you. Don't do like me and use your triple captain on a week where you just have a hunch and it's a single game week or things like that. Season before, a bust. Because that first time when I already, other times it was fine, but then when I see what people were doing with the triple captains, oh, oh. But
Yeah, you
last season, I catch it nice.
had to be strategic with it. I played my triple captain on Cristiano Ronaldo last season. I can't
I think
remember
you,
exactly what game week.
that was about 2 game weeks after my 2 or 3 game weeks after I used Coutinho. Because yeah, I remember you asking me, oh, you know that I say, but Coutinho was in form. And,
Yeah,
and them
yeah.
two game weeks I hit. But with your Cristiano Ronaldo, that when he's come and scored the hat trick.
No, no, no. I didn't get him when he scored the hat trick. I got him. He scored a penalty, and I
Mm-hmm.
think he got a couple bonus points. Now that week he scored more than Salah, but not by plenty. He scored more than Salah, like by about 2 points.
Right.
So in the context of it all, if I had waited to use my triple captain, maybe on a double week for Salah, I would have gotten more points.
Okay.
I got I got points, yes, because he was the highest scoring on my team, but it was something like 9 or 10 points. So 9 or 10 by 3 is a big difference. They figure a man get 15 or a man get 18 by 3, understand?
Yeah,
So it
that does.
wasn't a bad triple captain. It's not like if he scored two. Well, when you triple captain a man and he scored two, you want to cry. It wasn't bad, but at the same time, it wasn't great either.
Yeah,
My
but that's
tip,
what happened. That's what happened with Coutinho, because Coutinho scored in both games and assisted.
you
So
understand?
that's
So
where the points rack up.
when you get that kind of triple captain, you're really so you had to really position yourself. I just felt that Ronaldo was due for some big points, and because it was during his lull period, and just one goal in the game and a couple bonus points, he get like 9. Salah got 8. I was like, really, really wasn't too special. My tip is I want people to people should start off the season utilizing what they will call the template team. They might say, oh, where's the template team? The template team is the team that most people have. Now, obviously, one would say, well, the idea of fantasy is to get the most points. You want to stand out, you want to go ahead of the field. But there are always players out there that are going to surprise you. There are always players out there that are going to that you're not going to expect to shine. The same players don't shine every season, right? Except for Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold and Son and Kane. The same players don't shine every season in terms of your whole 11, right? Or your whole team, if you look at the whole 15. So I would advise you see players that are heavily owned, make sure you have them in your team. I really wanted to start off this season without Salah. But when I see Salah on over 60% ownership, when I see Jesus over 70% ownership, if you don't have these players in your team, Trent Alexander Arnold, another player that is very heavily owned, the goalkeepers kind of split. So you could pick any goalkeeper. But if you don't have these players that a lot of good players have in the team, a lot of good fantasy players have in the team, imagine most good fantasy players have Salah and they're going to captain him. You decide, you know what? I too much money. I going to spread out, get a good stack my midfield, leave out Salah, and Salah start off this season with a hat trick. You know what's going on with you? You're crying because now these fellas leave you out. No.
Well,
If you have Salah, you have Trent, you have Jesus, right? These players that are heavily owned, and all of them fail,
a whole story by itself.
you're not going to be, even though other people with differentials being players that not the majority of people have, right? But even though other people with plenty of players like that might get plenty points, the truth is, during the course of the season, you could catch them. But the seasoned veteran players, the good players, the people who really just take fantasy serious, you ain't catching them fellas if they bust out on you. You understand what I'm saying? So, start off the season conservative. What do I mean by that? Buy certain solid players. Trent Alexander-Arnold, you want in your team. Liverpool have an excellent start to the season. Arsenal have an excellent start to the season. Chelsea have a fairly good start to the season. Spurs
City,
fairly good as well. Manchester United have a good start except for playing Liverpool first
Liverpool.
6 games. Five out of those 6 games are winnable games. So all these are the teams that you want to target. You want at least 2 Liverpool players. You want at least 2 Arsenal players because of the fixtures that these teams have. Right? I wouldn't say you necessarily need 2 Manchester United players, but it have some good value in Manchester United right now because of how poorly they performed last season. A lot of the good players
Yes.
have gotten, have gotten, they dropped in price. So you want to start off conservative. You want to make sure you have Jesus. You want to make sure you have Salah. You want to make sure you have Trent. And you want to build a team that's not too out there. And give yourself the opportunity to see who balls out and to fill your team in. And the other aspect of being conservative is you want players on every price point. What do I mean by that? You don't decide, okay, well, I'm going to have Haaland and Jesus and Kane as my striking three, which might only leave your money for one good midfielder. So Son or Salah. And then everybody else, you had to be 6 million, 5 million, and it just falling in with, no, you don't want to do that.
No.
Because as things go along, you need to be able to change. If Salah don't ball out and you have Salah, you could buy anybody else because he's
Correct.
13.
But I could add to
You
that.
could
I
sell,
could add to that, Chad. I
yeah.
could add to that because you have players who perform that do not cost as much as they do. But you're quite correct in saying that you need to have these players as a core, as a backbone, as a sturdy points who will take you through the season without once they're not injured and stuff like that.
I
But
mean, let me be
but I
real.
guess when we
Salah,
do get I guess when we do get to to show the teams, people might get a better feel and
yeah, you
understanding
will be
of how
thing
the
with it,
split
yeah,
is. No, no, I can tell you
But Salah
personally,
has. Mhm.
I can
Go
tell you
ahead.
personally, I might be balling Jesus because I don't have Jesus. But it's a gamble I take it. You understand?
No, and you see, there's it. You have to recognize when you do have certain key players that you're taking a gamble. Because the truth is, if Jesus start off the season hot, a man like Raul will find himself behind the eight ball. You understand? But it is what it is. So let's jump in to start checking out our teams. And Raul, we're gonna go with your team first. So talk to us about your team and run through why you went with these players.
Well, I always like to stack my midfield and have one potent striker, one one well-known striker. This is how I like to start my season. Um, Generally, I would have had a fairly balanced out takeout. Spent one. I would have had like if you look at the cost of Salah, De Bruyne, and Haaland, you trade them over 11 million, right? I would normally only have two players in my squad with that. But I say this time around, I say let me pack it with De Bruyne and Salah, Haaland on top, and an unknown who performed to bring his team up into the Premier League. He may just
Taylor
catch a
Taylor
lick.
has, Taylor has performed well for Forest. It's
Mm-hmm.
Nottingham Forest Taylor is from, right? Yeah.
Yes, correct is right.
Yeah, and he has performed well in the preseason as well. But
Mm-hmm.
it's still a gamble. But
It is
against Newcastle, I guess that is a gamble you could take because
correct,
Newcastle doesn't necessarily have the strongest defense,
right.
right?
But as you will
Um,
notice, I have Shah in my defense from Newcastle because he is a goal scoring defender
yeah,
and an assisting defender together with Trent Alexander-Arnold and Regulion. So if you realize my three defenders are points getting defenders.
yeah, well, that's the kind of defenders you want. You want either wingers, left backs or right backs, or men who just score set pieces.
Right? And based on the preseason form of Ilanga and Rashford, I expect that they will turn in some performances early in the season
The
and
one
contribute to the points.
the one standout for me wasn't even Taylor, but McGinn.
Yeah,
Why I went with McGinn
because
from Aston Villa?
he's a sleeper. He's a
He's a
he's a
sleeper.
he's a sleeper because people slept on him last season, and I got a lot of points off of him last season.
All right, so your last season experience is
My
what
last
is
season
why.
experience with McGinn,
Fair enough. Fair enough. I could hear that. I could
and,
understand.
and if you watch my bench,
Yeah, but
defenders that create assists still, eh?
yeah, but these guys. I mean, I know Chalaba may actually get some stats because
Mhm.
Chelsea seem to be struggling to figure out what they're doing with the defense and they've lost some players. Cucurella, I don't expect to start simply because if he gets his transfer to Chelsea, he ain't gonna start game week 1, right?
Nah,
Because he ain't trained as yet. And even if
because
he stays with
he's still in the
Brighton, the
Brighton.
man put in a transfer request. If I
He ain't
was
gonna answer.
Brighton, I wasn't playing him. But
Exactly.
having somebody that may switch and may end up at Chelsea, you know, if he starts in the long run, that might pay off. Um, Months, I don't know anything about Months whatsoever, so I'm not even going to.
Yeah, Muniz is I think that's Fulham.
Yeah, I know which team he's from, but I don't know anything about the
Oh,
player, so I'm not even
yeah,
going to pretend. that I know
So,
anything about the player.
so I just
All right.
he was at 4.5. He fit in as an additional forward,
But how
and
much Taylor was doing? Taylor is 4.5 as well.
same thing, same
So
thing.
you spend the majority of your money on your midfield.
Correct is right.
All right. All right. Well, let's take a look at my team. Um, I went with Ramsdale in goal simply because
He
Arsenal
has
have
had
some
some
really
good form.
well, yeah, but mainly because Arsenal have some good fixtures, and I really wanted an Arsenal defender,
Hmm.
but I couldn't decide on which one. So I say, you know what? I will go with a keeper because this is my final draft, and I only recently changed this draft. Right? I
Hmm.
say I'll go with the goalkeeper, and instead of going for Arsenal defender, I went for Trippier. Trippier simply because he takes set pieces for
Hmm.
Newcastle, and even though Newcastle is not great, their defense is fairly decent.
Yeah.
The low, um, again, but he's most likely going to be Manchester United's starting wing back, right wing back, and if that is the case, he's going to have opportunities to get the ball in the box, to cross the ball, and again, Manchester United has a fairly against Brighton. Yes, they lost to Brighton last season, the last game they played, but I think under Ten Hag, the system looks good, it looks tight, so I'm expecting some clean sheet points in the first 6 games.
Hmm.
Right? Alexander Arnold, there's no need to explain. He has been the top points getting defender for the past few seasons. Well, so
Hmm.
Cancelo last season was excellent, right? He came right behind Alexander Arnold. I expect him to get involved in the play going forward because after the licks that City get from Liverpool, I'm expecting them to bounce back in the
Yeah,
first game of the season when it really counts. Bailey has,
Jamaican.
yeah, the Jamaican Bailey. He has had an excellent preseason with us with Aston Villa.
Hmm.
So he has like 2 goals and a couple assists. So he's in good form. And at $5 million, couldn't really go wrong there.
Yeah,
Martinelli and Fernandez. I don't need to talk about Salah. We spoke about Salah
yeah.
earlier.
We talk about salary.
Um, Martinelli, again, good form. He had like over 3 assists, some goals as well in the preseason. And also Emmett Smith Rowe, who plays in the same position as Martinelli, is injured. So
Yeah,
definitely for game week 1,
he will
Martinelli
play.
is going to start. Right. So if Arsenal does anything with him and Jesus, I expect to get some points from that game. Fernandez is my biggest risk because at his price point, obviously, I could have almost anybody else, including Son. The beginning of last season, Fernandez started off with a hat trick, even though he only had like 1 assist whole preseason. I think Bruno is going to start. I think this team, Manchester United, is going to start off hot, and I also think that Bruno is going to chip in with some kind of contribution, either goals or an assist. And I mean, it is easy if he does not perform at that price point to sell
To
him and buy
replace him with
maybe a
somebody.
Son or somebody else because he's an expensive player.
Correct.
He is not, as I'm telling you, is a risk, right? Don't go and tell anybody I tell it to buy Fernandez. I didn't say that, right? Players I tell it to make sure and buy Alexander Arnold, Salah, and Jesus. But that is a risk that I want, and I'm hoping it pays off. And the front line of Haaland and Jesus, Haaland hasn't set the world on fire in preseason. However,
When he
that being
settles,
that being said, I really expect Haaland to he's one of those players who shows up. He shows up in big games, and there's no bigger game than the start of the season. So
and I will give you that is why I captained De Bruyne.
yeah.
Because
Strangely enough, this season De Bruyne has not been on as many. His ownership is very low. compared to normally De Bruyne's ownership is high, but his ownership is behind Salah, behind Son,
Yeah,
behind a number of other players. His ownership is not very high. But I mean, is people struggling to spend the money on the big players, eh?
yeah. But you see, the thing about it too. Remember, if I'm correct, De Bruyne was injured for a little period last season, right? So that affected his overall performance. He came back, but to catch back that form, eventually he did. But people seem to forget that. But this man is pure class, pure class. To me, he is the best playing midfielder in the world right now. I don't
And
Salah behind him, but
strangely enough, if you were to ask me who is the best footballer in the world, I would tell you De Bruyne hands down.
yeah,
De
that
Bruyne,
he
he
is.
didn't have a good preseason, but De Bruyne is class personified. You know what I mean? So I
A,
totally
a, a man, a man
understand that
who,
place.
a man who fully fit and functioning. Who to me,
And
what I've
and
seen for the years
he have a number.
that could rival him, and I pray that he's used well by Eric. See Ericsson.
Yeah, the only reason why I think Ericsson wouldn't make a lot of people's teams is because they believe he may not start.
That
But I'm
correct.
telling you, if Ten Hag starts Ericsson and Fernandez, Ericsson is going to end up in a lot of people's fantasy team.
That's right.
A lot of
That's right.
people's fantasy team. But they
That
just
is
be,
correct.
and again, that's why I say you don't want to start off with too much differentials. You want to kind of wait and see who are the players that are going to take off, because at the beginning of the season, sometimes certain players, not cemented in the starting 11 as yet. So you don't want to be too risky to start off the game. Thank you very much for joining us. Remember, the day before the beginning of the game week is when you're going to have the fantasy blitz. So game week starts tomorrow, hence why the show is today. If the game week starts on a Saturday, the show will be on a Friday. Sometimes, because of the condensed season with the World Cup, you're going to have some midweek starts. When that happens, we're going to be here the day before. Whatever the day of the game week starting, that is when we're going to be here the day before. So remember, Red Devils, we don't die, we multiply. Share your team in the comments. Let us know what your fantasy team is like, and you will be taking this journey with us, this fantasy journey on the Fantasy Blitz. Later, people.
Move on out.
Support the United Hour. Click that like button and subscribe.